Jai Shri Gurudev. Good morning, dear students. Dear students, we can see so many things in our surroundings. You know what are those things? Yes, even maybe stone, soil, oh yes, plants, animals. When we come to classroom, in this classroom we can see chair, piece of chalk, board, fan, desk, books, bag, like this cars, bikes, and outside the classroom. So these are all the things. These are all the things we can see in our daily life. In students, those out of those things, we can divide those things into mainly two types. You know what are those things? Yes, living things, and another one is non-living things. Living things and non-living things. Yes. See, living things and non-living things. Living things means, what are those living things? What are living things first of all? Living things means the things which have life. The things which have life are called living things. What are the living things we can see in our surroundings? Yes, plants, animals. Yes, plants, animals like dog, yes, buffalo, cat, goat, sheep. These are all the animals we can see in our daily life, everyday life. So, plants, animals, insects, birds, these are all the what? Examples of living things. Then what are non-living things? Non-living things means the things which do not have life. Those are all called what? Non-living things. See, the examples of non-living things are yes, stone. On the road we can see stone. Yes, sand, bike, car. Yes, like this, bag. In our daily life we are daily bag, pen. Yes, mobile, notebooks, board. These are all the examples of non-living things. Yes, students. In this session, now we are going to see or we are going to discuss about living things. How can we study about living things? How can we are going to discuss about living things. Yes, dear students. Living things means not only plants and animals. So many things are there, so many beings are there. Even from smallest to greatest, even from mosquitoes to elephant, blue whale, like this, we can see so many animals. So, in this session, now we are going to discuss, we are going to study about these animals in detail, or these things, these beings in detail. Yes, dear students, in this session, let's discuss about diversity in living organisms. And you listen. Diversity of living organisms. So, this is a yes, dear students. If we are going to compare ourselves and our friends with a monkey, what would we say? Obviously, we and our friends have a lot in common when we compare ourselves with a monkey. But suppose we were to add a curve to the comparison, we would then think that the monkey has a lot more in common with us than with the cow. Yes, dear students, now think of all the different forms in which life occurs on the earth. On one hand, we have microscopic bacteria of a few micrometers in size, while on the other hand, we have blue whale and redwood trees of California of approximate sizes of 30 meter and 100 meter. Some pine trees lives for 1,000 years, while insects like mosquitoes die within a few days. Life also ranges from colorless or even transparent worms or brightly colored birds and flowers. This variety is life around us has evolved on the earth over millions of years. However, we do not have more than a tiny fraction of this time to try and understand all these living. In order to make relevant groups to study the variety of life forms, we need to decide which characteristics decide more fundamental differences among organisms. This would create the main broad group of organisms. Within these groups, smaller subgroups will be decided by less important characteristics. Yes, now let's see what is the basis of classification. Attempts at classifying living organisms into groups have been made since time immemorial. A Greek philosopher, Aristotle classified animals according to whether they live on land, water, or in the air. This is a very simple way of looking at life. It is going to show very simple level of classification, but it's going to misleading too. For example, animals that live in the sea include corals, whales, octopus, sharkfish, and sharks. We can immediately see that these are very different from each other in numerous ways. In fact, their habitat is the only point they share in common. This is not an appropriate way of making groups of organisms to study and think about. Before we go on, we need to think about what is meant by classification. Yes, when we are trying to classify a diverse group of organisms, we need to find ways in which some of them are similar enough to be thought of together. These ways, in fact, are details of appearance or behavior, in other words, forms and function. What we mean by characteristics is a particular form or a particular function that most of us have. 5 fingers on each hand is the same characteristic that we can run, but the banyan tree cannot. It's also a characteristic. Now to understand how some characteristics are decided as being more fundamental than others. Let us consider how a stone wall is built. The stones used will have different shapes and sizes. The stone at the top of the wall would not influence the choice of stones that come below them. On the other hand, the shapes and sizes of stone in the lowermost layer will decide the shape and size of the next layer, and so on. The stones in the lowermost layer are like the characteristics. If the lowermost is going to decide the characteristics.